Hello everybody, this is Juntas, and today we are taking a looking at the Head Dragon and Hand of Justice build for Paladins. So this is kind of like the cousin of the Paladin, which a lot of people like the recent video I did on, so I figured I wanted to kind of show the lesser version of that build. Obviously it's not gonna be as strong as the Paladin just because it doesn't really have access to Enigma, so we can't teleport, and we are also kind of left out with Grief. But still, it's a very interesting build, and I kind of wanted to show it off and also just kind of give it a 12 because I've never really done this build before, at least on live servers. It's pretty interesting to kind of stack that much auras. A lot of people also just kind of like to call this like the main Auradin build. A lot of people would even go as far as using maybe like a Dream Helm or other sort of items together. It's pretty wild with how many auras you can get. But for the most part, using just Hand of Justice and Dragon is kind of like the normal way to go with this build. So let's start with some gameplay and show off the build. Now, you might see that I have 3 items stacked with fire damage, Holy Fire aura here, and also on the weapon. You're gonna think, wow, that's one more item than Holy Shock. It would probably do quite a bit more damage, but for some reason, it's not as good, which you will see now. So this is on players 1. And let's just perhaps take a look at this guy here. Oh, he was actually getting killed. But basically, the aura doesn't really do that much AoE damage, sadly. That's really just the main thing you should know about. Oh, they got a little loot from that one. But it's unfortunate that the damage is just not as high, the lightning damage. That is really just not what I would consider acceptable damage to put into 3 items. You're investing a lot into kind of make that work. You can see here that the Fawn Hulks, yeah, they do take some damage, but it's definitely not as fast as lightning damage. It's still okay on players 1, but it's definitely weaker. You can see here Shank is getting like 5-shotted from the aura. I suppose it's good enough, but I still feel like it's weaker than the Paladin build. Now, speaking about that build, it actually plays completely like the Paladin build, just without kinda teleport. So, for a few fun things I could mention really fast is that we're actually using stuff like a rock build because I just feel like plus Skils would be good. I'm also using a Bulkator's Wedding Band, kinda just wanting to stack plus Skils. So yeah, the build plays exactly like the Paladin build, where we have Seal and Conviction Aura, and for a little more kind of fun thing, I have Vigor Aura and also Redemption. That can keep a little bit of a gameplay going, so it's not that boring, only having 2 buttons to kind of use. In terms of its survival, it's also extremely good, so we can kind of just show that off now. So this is players 8 now. Let's just see the survival. I'm very surprised that they're actually as good as Paladin, just because I feel like it would do less damage not using Grief and whatnot. But it's no problem. Even my call to arms is not up right now, and 2000 life, I'm not really worrying. So the survival is there. I would say that you can comfortably somewhat always play this on players 8 without even a life tap. So it's cool to see that. Yeah, this runeword here is not as good as Grief, but it's still okay enough to keep me up with just life leech. So the damage is fine for survival and whatnot. So this build really is the cousin of the Paladin build. I don't think, a Paladin plays more similar than any one of those builds. It's really fun to see. But anywho, we will show the gear now, just kind of getting that out of the way. So, we are not gonna consider the Cool's gloves just because we don't really need the life tap proc, and the stats from some really good crafted blood gloves are just so superior. Crushing blows, strain dexterity life. Of course, with these gloves here also comes a price, but you can get gloves without strain dexterity on it, and they're still pretty cheap. Also, you don't really need a life leech or mana leech in this case on the build. So something like a dual leech ring, which I have on the Paladin build, is not really needed because we don't really spend mana on anything. The only thing we really spend mana on is like, I don't know, buffing up call to arms or something like that. And since we also have Redemption Aura, it's totally fine. So for rings, I actually use Ravenfrost ring. It's a ring that I often don't want to use because I don't feel like it's worth ever using. But in this particular case, it fitted really well. We get cannot be frozen, which is great when we don't have teleport. And I also could not use, I didn't really want to use a charm rune in Gulium's face. You could, but I didn't really want to. And yeah, this ring here just fits well. We also get a attack rating boosted up to 5000. 5,000 attack rating is plenty when we also have conviction, or still I just wanted a little bit higher than maybe 3,000, 4,000. I knew that before going into the build, so Raven Frost is pretty good to kind of just feel safe. Also it helps on Maxblock. And then a rock build, as I showed before, it's just for plus skillers. It's kind of just like, you know, you could go with a Dungo if you're into PvP. And speaking about PvP, I'll also leave a really great PvP guide in the description below, so if you kind of want to tailor it towards PvP, a lot of people are gonna find that link interesting. I know it's a really good guide. It's also one of the oldest PvP guides I've ever shown in the video, so it's pretty fun to see you know, how good they were also making guides back then. And then Gore Riders, just because we need like the DPS stats to make Seal work even better. Yeah, it's just really great pair of boots. And then Dragon in a Sacred Targe, pretty important because we need the plus 45 resistance. This would also be a really hard base to make, because most people, at least I would think, don't make Dragon runewords for sale or whatever in a Sacred Targe. But yeah, this really, I can't stress how much we need you know, this in a Sacred Targe. Not only Sacred Targe gives you know, great amount of block, but that plus to 45 all resistance, if you can get that higher roll on the base, is really great for capping resistance. And then Dragon in a Mage Blade, you don't really need to make it in a Mage Blade. I think you could even make it like in a Dusk Shroud or an Archon Blade without having to put points into strain. But just to kind of be safe for the showcase of this video, I just went with a Mage Blade. Pretty, you know, it's okay. It doesn't really have a lot of defense, so we lose out on some survival there, but I can live with it. Also, just taking a look at the items themselves, they have plus to maximum lightning resistance, which really ties in well with Hydra's Wrath. Usually on like a Paladin build using this one, you're just kind of like overcapped on lightning resistance. But for once we can actually use Hydra's Wrath's you know, massive amount of lightning resistance, so it's pretty nice to see. Also it has some pretty other good stats. One thing how I will mention when we take a look further at the gameplay is that you see here that the 12% chance to cast a level 15 Hydra on striking, that procs so many Hydras. It's hilarious to look at. Some days ago or weeks ago, whatever, I took a look at if Hydra is good on a sorcerer's build or Firewall is good on a sorcerer's build. You can feel free to check that video out, but actually this spams and does more Hydra damage, I would say, than even you know, a tailor towards Hydra sorcerer's build. So it's pretty fun to see. It's not a lot of damage actually, but it's still fun to see just how many Hydras you're spamming on the screen when you are able to attack really fast with the Seal in AoE situations. And now talking about AoE, we of course need a good weapon, and Hand of Justice is actually that. You can see that it has a lot of enhanced damage, increased attack speed, ignore target's defense, you know, it has some really great stats. Also the life leech is pretty handy if you didn't have a life leech on a ring or whatever. And 20% deadly strike, hits blind target, freezes target, like it has really great stats. It's just gonna be a lot weaker than Grief sadly in pure damage, but it's still okay. And you can see here that the seal damage is almost at 5k max damage with my mixed inventory. So if you had, you know, a different inventory than mine, you could actually get up to maybe 5,000 max damage. So Hand of Justice is a really great weapon. And then also just Guliam's face here. You can see that I went with plus 15 all resist and let's see, plus fire damage dual in it. I don't really think the fire damage will matter that much for your own damage, but I still felt it was fun to experiment with. Also the plus resistance really helps. If you don't like using Raven Frost Ring, again you can use a Charm Rune in Guliam's face instead. But I think that's about it for the gear. It's pretty simple, also just like call arms and switch and whatnot. There's a few changes from the Paladin build, but mostly it's just kind of like working around not using Grief and using you know, not an Enigma but instead a Dragon here in this case. It's a really simple build to kind of work out if you already have maybe some sorceress gear lying around, like a rock belt, Volca's wedding band, and just kind of like standard seal gear. And I can also just quickly show the Merc. It's of course a Reaver's Tall Merc. I would like to maybe consider something else, but this is just too strong. Honestly, in players 8 situations, this might actually do more single target damage than your own damage. Okay, maybe not, but it feels like it sometimes. This Merc is just so strong, so yeah, this is the obvious choice. And so let's take a look at the skills here. Enough strength just to kind of wear all equipment. If you use another base than the Mage Blade, it might be a little hairy to get strength without putting any points into it, but that's kind of something you have to plan ahead. And then enough dexterity just for Maxblock. A note on Maxblock, I only took 1 point into Holy Shield, so yeah, you can put more points into Holy Shield, which then means you don't have to put that many points into dexterity, but it's up to yourself. And then rest of the points into Vitality. Right now I'm also buffed up with Call to Arms, and you can see that I have over 3000 life, so it's really fine with survival. And let's also just take a look at the inventory and resistance. So the attack rating is fine with conviction, max damage, etc. Defense is also okay. But the resistance was a little bit hard to kind of cap out. So my initial plan was actually just gonna grow with like 3 2020s and these grand charms here, you know, kind of just be balling with some really good inventory. But in order to cap resistance, we really do need, you know, these items here. Even something like these ones can also work out really fine. It was a little hard to cap resistance. I could also again mention that I'm using a cold and poison small charm. It's always a good idea to keep one of these in the inventory. But yeah, it's a bit hard to cap resistance on this build. We don't really have, you know, really great runewords that gives a lot of plus resistance. Besides the shield here pretty much. So the inventory can be a bit hard to juggle around, definitely if you want to be able to cap resistance. And so let's take a look at skills. It's really simple, like the Paladin build. Instead of like putting points into, you know, resist lightning or whatever, you're just putting points into resist fire and then salvation, and that's it for that pretty much. I also chose to go with redemption, vigor, aura, defiance, you know, these trees here. But I will note, however, that if you're not at really high level, say you're only at 85, it can be a bit problematic to actually afford these skills here. If you're also gonna put a lot of points into sacrifice to get a good seal damage. So you can nerf your own seal damage and then perhaps just consider getting vigor and redemption aura. It's kind of up to yourself. But again, this is really, you know, I actually was only able to get all these skills here at level 99 and still miss +2 to sacrifice. So this build is really tailored towards getting to at least level 85, I would say. Maybe even like 95 to really get good seal damage. But yeah, it can be a bit problematic to kind of plan ahead if you don't really, you know, aim to get above 85. And then we're putting, yeah, just getting up to level 25 in conviction with Call to Arms. And the rest of the points are kind of just fillers. And then for combat tree, again, we are only putting 1 point into Holy Shields. We didn't really need that more. Charge is also a little fun skill to kind of move around, maybe do some PvP with. But yeah, then we're just putting, you know, 20 points into seal and rest into sacrifice. And so here at the end, let's just do some Players 8 gameplays again in Worldstone Keep. You can see that I'm pretty much able to, you know, one-shot level 8 mobs. It's pretty good with seal damage, even if we are not using grief. I'm surprised that the damage is still that good. And even in a room like this, let's see if we can survive this. Can be a bit hard. Oh, it's actually running out of mana. That's not a good thing. But yeah, then we can use maybe redemption off for a little while. That always helps. Then just switch back to conviction aura. So yeah, even a deadly room like this was able to be handled. And then look at all the hydras also. It's really fun to see just how many of those are spawned. It's a very visual pleasing build. You know, if you like a lot of fire on your screen, you're definitely gonna get that with this build. Yeah, I really love the hydras. Yeah, this is how survival is just fine. It would be better if of course I had grief, but it's totally good. I was actually gonna consider if it was even worth maybe using Hand of Justice and then just using grief and only dragon. But I wanted to kind of, you know, go with all three of the rune words together, just to make that the fire damage even better. You know, the aura damage. Yeah, this is just, you know, cruising. It's not as fast when we don't have teleport and whatnot, but it's still really fine. I definitely enjoy this one. If you think that maybe this could be tweaked, you know, there's some other variations, because I think there's a lot of ways to kind of build a Dream or Auradin Paladin build. Feel free to let me know about that, because yeah, there's a few variations I saw around on the internet and whatnot. But I feel like this variation here with just using the 3 items together were the best one. But yeah, I think that's about it. I don't really think I could, change anything with the build. The only problem was kind of just, capping resistance and kind of planning the build in terms of skills and whatnot, since I had to be pretty high level to get seal damage up and whatnot. But as soon as, you have that decent seal damage and a little bit of life leech, you're actually able to survive and do okay damage. So now I'm really only missing teleports, and yeah, this is really fine to me at least. So thank you so much for watching everyone, and have a good one.